The room fell silent as Elizabeth Warren's sharp voice cut through the air like a blade, her words dripping with condescension. "You think I'm stupid, Mr. Kennedy?" she sneered, adjusting her glasses with a flick of her wrist, her eyes narrowing at the man across the table. The congressional hearing had been tense all morning, but this moment, caught on live television, ignited a firestorm. Robert Kennedy, Jr., with his unruly gray hair and a suit that seemed slightly too big, leaned back in his chair, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. What followed wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a masterclass in resilience, a clash of intellect and street-earned wisdom that would leave the nation buzzing for weeks. It all started months earlier in the gritty streets of Boston, where Bobby Kennedy, as his friends called him, grew up far from the polished halls of power. Born into a working-class family, Bobby had watched his father toil as a dock worker, his hands calloused from years of hauling crates, while his mother stitched clothes late into the night to make ends meet. Life wasn't easy. At 12, Bobby lost his older brother to a gang fight, a tragedy that left a void in his heart and a determination to rise above the chaos. He wasn't book-smart like the Ivy League crowd. Instead, he learned the hard way, through fistfights in alleys, late night, debates with local philosophers at the corner diner, and a relentless drive to understand the world through the lens of the people who lived it. Elizabeth Warren, on the other hand, was the epitome of the polished elite. A Harvard law professor turned senator, she had spent decades crafting policies and wielding her intellect like a weapon. To her, Bobby was an outsider, an environmental activist with a controversial past, a man whose name carried the weight of his famous family, but whose credentials seemed shaky. When the hearing was scheduled to address environmental regulations, Warren saw an opportunity to discredit him. She had prepared meticulously, armed with data and legal precedents, confident that her academic prowess would overshadow his rough-around-the-edges demeanor. The hearing began with Warren dominating the discussion, her questions laced with skepticism, as she grilled Bobby about his proposals to protect wetlands. "Your plan lacks empirical evidence," she declared, flipping through her notes with a smug smile. "It's a feel-good idea, but it won't hold up in court." Bobby shifted uncomfortably, the room's cold, fluorescent lights casting shadows on his weathered face. He felt the weight of every eye on him, senators, aides, and the camera crews, judging him, waiting for him to stumble. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe he didn't belong here. Maybe his street wisdom wasn't enough against her polished arguments. But then he remembered his roots. He thought of his father's tired eyes after a 16-hour shift, his mother's quiet strength as she mended his torn jacket after a fight, and the community that rallied around him after his brother's death. That memory fueled a spark inside him. He leaned forward, his voice steady but raw with emotion. "Senator Warren," he began, "I didn't learn about wetlands from a textbook. I learned from wading through them as a kid, watching the fish die because of pollution we couldn't afford to fight. You talk about evidence. My evidence is the people who can't breathe clean air because corporations pay off lawmakers like you to look the other way." The room gasped. Warren's face tightened, her composure slipping as Bobby continued. He painted a vivid picture of his childhood, the smell of salt in the air, the sound of his brother's laughter before it was silenced, the day he stood up to a factory owner dumping waste into the river and got beaten for it. "I don't have your degrees," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But I have scars. I have a community that taught me what justice really means. You can mock me, but you can't erase that." The emotional weight of his words hung in the air, a testament to a life lived with grit and heart. Warren tried to regain control, firing back with statistics and legal jargon, but her tone lacked the conviction it had before. Bobby, now emboldened, countered with stories, real human stories, of fishermen he'd worked with, of children playing near toxic sites, of a single mother who'd lost her home to industrial runoff. He didn't just argue, he connected. The senators, many of whom had grown numb to the endless debates, leaned in, their expressions softening. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. The turning point came when Warren, flustered, accused him of oversimplifying complex issues. Bobby stood up, his chair scraping against the floor, and pulled a worn notebook from his pocket. "This," he said, holding it up, "is every complaint, every plea, every tear from the people I've fought for. You want complexity? It's right here, written by hands that work, not just write." The room erupted in applause, a rare break from protocol. Warren, red-faced, had no rebuttal. She gathered her papers and left the table, her defeat palpable. In the days that followed, the clip went viral. Bobby's raw honesty resonated with millions, from factory workers to students, sparking a movement. He didn't win every battle. Environmental policy remained a slow grind, but he gained allies, including some unexpected ones in Congress. Warren, humbled, later reached out privately, acknowledging his impact. For Bobby, it wasn't about victory over her. It was about proving that wisdom born from struggle could stand tall against any ivory tower. As the story unfolded on YouTube, viewers saw not just a debate, but a journey of resilience. Bobby returned to his community where kids now looked up to him, and he founded a mentorship program to teach them the street wisdom that had carried him through. The final scene showed him by the river, teaching a young boy to fish, his face lit with hope. "You don't need a degree to change the world," he said, looking into the camera. "You need heart, and you need to fight for each other." The message lingered, inspiring viewers to find strength in their own stories, proving that even the humblest roots can grow into something extraordinary.